Alright, I'm filming it. I'm doing it. I'm doing the wrap up. It's late. It's late. It's very late. I'm gonna shoot this before I go to bed. We'll see if I get this up tomorrow, Friday. That's today. But I'm awake, so whatever. Books. I finished Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and I also read the novella that follows it, which is like book 1.5 in the trilogy, The Gentleman's Guide to Getting It On, I believe it's called. Listen to them on audio. I'm not going to talk too much about them. I think I might wait and I'll see how I feel once I finish the whole series. Maybe do a video about the whole thing. But it's good and fun and heartwarming and nice and good for the youth. I think it's a teens book. Good messaging and good lessons for the young people to learn from these books, I think. And they're fun. They're sort of an adventure story like Indiana Jones or National Treasure or whatever. But also a love story, good characters, fun characters, exciting. The audiobook was really well done. The narrator was great. He did a great job. I have been putting off starting the second one the last couple days. I don't really know why. I guess I wanted to take a little break before I jumped back in. But yeah, that's the only thing I've been really reading in the last week. I know I haven't talked about stuff for like 3 weeks. I'm not going to talk about everything that I've done in the last 3 weeks. I'm still just going to stick to the last week. So there's 2 weeks that it will be lost to time forever. The movies that I watched. There weren't that many, don't worry. I'm going to talk about movies next. So, one thing that was more than a week ago, but I want to just talk about briefly, was Batman. I saw Batman twice, actually. I saw it on the Sunday, the weekend it came out, so almost 2 weeks ago now. And then I saw it again on the Thursday of that week. First time I saw it with my bud Tim. And then I saw it again, like 3 days later with some different friends. Because they hadn't seen it yet and I wanted to see it again. So I kind of was like, hey, we should go. So I think that by the fact that I wanted to see it again should probably key you in that I really liked it a lot. It's pretty rare that a big blockbuster movie comes out and I really like it a lot. But this one was one of them, I can't remember the last time that there was like a huge ass movie like this that was successful that I was this on board with. 'Cause Blade Runner 2 was pretty failed, money wise. And I liked it more than any of the Nolan movies. Any of the Nolan Batmans, I liked it more than Interstellar. I liked it more than Inception. It's my favorite Batman. I haven't seen Mask of the Phantasm in a really long time, but I still think it's my favorite. I just like the dour tone. Everything is very grimy. It feels like a movie. Marvel movies, they don't feel like movies. They just feel like things happening on a screen. It doesn't feel like cinema, I guess. This feels like a movie. It looks like a movie. The action is really good. It's not like quick cut, like visual salad CGI nightmare stuff. It's like simple, brutal, long shots, Very cool. A few very cool set pieces. It's pretty dour and serious, but it's not completely humorless. All the acting is fantastic. Zoe Kravitz is like a perfect Selena Kyle. Paul Dano is always incredible in everything that he is in. I also feel that way about Robert Pattinson. Both of them are, among the best actors of my generation. Yeah, I mean, there are things that I can critique about it, but who really cares? The things that I would critique about it are things that I would critique about all superhero stories, but I think that this movie does a better job than 99% of superhero movies about being self-reflexive about the idea that, like, there is very little difference between Batman and the people that Batman is fighting. Both of them are, people who want to enact change that aligns with their vision, and they are using violence and fear to invoke that change in the city. They're imposing their will on people through fascism, through violence. This is one of the only movies superhero movies that has ever actually dealt with this idea. Which is funny because they made a movie out of Watchmen, and that's like the entire point of Watchmen, but Zack Snyder does not have the capability of understanding that is the point of Watchmen, I don't think. But yeah, so I loved Batman. Very good. Very, very good. The only other movies I've watched that I've actually watched in the last week, the first one was on the 14th, on Pi Day, on Monday. I went and I saw Perfect Blue at the movie theater at the Trilon, the lovely Trilon, who I go to as often as I can. They're doing a Satoshi Kon series of all of his directorial films. So last week they showed Tokyo Godfathers. This week was Perfect Blue. Next week, Paprika, Millennium Actress, in the last week of March. I'm going to be going to both of the remaining screenings. Paprika I'm particularly excited about because they're showing it on 35mm, and it's a particularly rare print. It's pretty hard to find print of that movie, so that's very exciting. I always love getting to see rare 35mm prints. It's one of the true joys in my life, getting to see movies in a cinema on film. Thank God I live in a place where I can still do that. Perfect Blue is one of my favorite movies. It's a psychological thriller, horror, psychedelic movie, anime movie about a young woman who is a pop idol, but she decides that she transitions out of doing singing and into acting, and she starts taking on this role on this TV series that requires her to kind of do things that go against her image, risque, sexual things like that, and the character in the show starts to have this sort of fractured personality after something really traumatic happens to her, and then she starts to also fracture her personality as she sort of becomes haunted by this image of the ideal version of herself as a pop star who is sort of like chastising her for going this separate, different way. And then at the same time, all of these people around her who are pushing her down this path start getting murdered, and it's unclear who's murdering her or if she's murdering them. And there's like someone stalking her, a fan, but is it really a fan, or is it her? Or it's a very weird movie. It was a very obvious, to the point of a little shameless, influence on Black Swan, but much better than Black Swan. Not that Black Swan is terrible, but Perfect Blue is just much better. Incredible movie. Incredible movie. Satoshi Kon, genius. And then the day after that, Tuesday, I went over to my friend's house and we watched movies like we do. First, we watched Ocean's 13. I think that in the span that I'm not talking about, we watched Ocean's 12. and I think I talked about, I must have, when we watched Ocean's 11. I really like the Ocean's movies. I'd only ever seen the first one, and I had only seen it when it came out 20 years ago and barely remembered it. And they're great. They are, all three of them are fantastic. I think that I would rank them 1, 2, 3. The 1 and 2 are pretty close. I do really like the second one quite a bit. It does a lot of weird meta things in it that I really liked, particularly spoilers for a 20-year-old movie if you haven't seen it. But there's a part where they have the Julia Roberts character pretend to be Julia Roberts because she looks like Julia Roberts, which was really fascinating that they did that in like a big Hollywood movie. It's like super weird and awesome, and I love shit like that. And I've never seen anybody do that in like a huge ass movie like that before, so it was pretty cool. I was pretty psyched about that. Third one was also very good, but my least favorite. It just like there are things about it that I liked. I liked how it's like a revenge story. I liked how it was like the focus wasn't on them like doing a heist. It was on like making this person lose as much money as they could, and they were just sort of like giving the money to whoever they could, like to strangers and stuff. Al Pacino, great. I think that it was starting to get to a point where it was really like the focus is on Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, and George Clooney, and all the rest of the ensemble really sort of, I felt like they suffered. They didn't have enough to do, which is too bad, because I really think that was the strength of the films, was the ensemble. And I think that it showed even to the point where Catherine Zeta-Jones and Julia Roberts didn't want to be in the movie, because the parts that they just basically like had no real substance to their parts. There's like cameos basically, and they were like, it's not worth it unless you give me something to do. And they were like, we have too many fucking people in the movie, so I'm sorry. So I think that like it's good that they stopped, because I don't think that they could have propelled for much longer and maintained their quality. But I still really enjoyed it. And then after that, I finally got the two of them to watch Tatan. I've talked about Tatan a bunch of times on this channel. I talked about it in my list of favorite horror movies of the 21st century, which I made that video 6 months ago, and I already wish it could erase it from the planet, because my feelings about everything have changed. I talked about it in my favorite movies of the year list, where it was number 1. I've talked about it in the video I posted right before this, Faces of Horror. I talked about it a good amount. It's one of my favorite movies. Maybe my favorite movie. I don't know. I don't have a favorite movie, but maybe it's my favorite movie. It's pretty up there though. It's like in the top 3 maybe. Top 2. I don't know. Incredible movie. And they had a good time watching it. That's all you can ask for. Music. I'm not going to talk about music by looking at Scrobbles this week, because my music listening this week was kind of weird, because basically what happened was about 2 weeks ago, my friend Ellie asked me, we were having a conversation, and we were talking about how she has a lot of blind spots in sort of like cultural knowledge. She grew up in kind of a sheltered-ish, like pretty religious household, and just sort of like missed a lot of pop culture. And so she was like, I wish that someone would make me like a playlist of like the most important songs, or like not like the best songs, but like the most important songs. And I was like, I can do that, but it's gonna be, I mean, it's subjective, of course. And I was like, it's not gonna be, the Rolling Stone 500 greatest songs of all time, because that already exists. And if you want that, it's there, And I also was like, I'm gonna have to write notes. Because if you want to know why something is important, you need to have a little bit of context. It doesn't have to be a lot, paragraph or two about each song. So I took this project on, and I spent a week and a half working on it. And the final playlist is around 200 songs. And I wrote 37,000 words of notes. I know. I was not thrilled about this either. Spent a lot of time working on it. But it was fun. I had a good time doing it. And I got to listen to a lot of stuff that I hadn't listened to in a while. And I've been listening to the playlist, in the car and stuff. And after I finished it, I started just when I'd be in the car listening to it from the beginning. And I'm almost at the end of it now. I'm in the 2010s. I entered into the 2010s earlier tonight. But it's, it's fun because it's like you listen to it and then you go like, oh wow, Pink Floyd is like good, Like I haven't listened to Pink Floyd in a very long time, and then you hear it and you're like, yeah, this is actually like not really that overrated. It's like pretty excellent, Cold ass take, but Pink Floyd is pretty good. And Nirvana, you listen to In Utero, and you're like, or Nevermind for the first time in years and years, and you're like, sounds pretty good. But it was really fun to do that, and so that's mainly what I've been listening to. I've been listening to that playlist and working on that, writing the notes for that, and that's been really enjoyable. And then the thing that has been occupying the majority of my time has been games, actually, this last couple weeks. Last weekend, I had board game night Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, I hung out with my friends Alex and Ben at this board game store. It used to be the Fantasy Flight's Game Center, which was like a game store run by Fantasy Flight, which is a big game publisher that is part of Asmodee, which is like this, I think, the second biggest like game company in the world besides Hasbro. And Asmodee North America is headquartered in Roseville, Minnesota, a block away from where my half price that I used to work at. And in the office park where their headquarters are, they had this store. And then what ended up happening was that they had to basically, they didn't really have much going on at the store during the pandemic. And then the guy who founded Fantasy Flight and then became the president of Asmodee North America, Christian Peterson, he left Asmodee and then bought the store. And so it's basically the same as it was. It's in the same place. They just changed the name. It's called Game Center now, which is a terrible name. But that's okay. It's got a store. There's a restaurant. You can get burgers and beers. And then there's just tons and tons of tables where you can play games. And then they have a game library you can use and play the games in. It's quite a lot of fun. The three of us hung out there for the evening and played a bunch of The Crew, which I think I talked about before. The first time I played it, the cooperative trick-taking game. Very, very, very fun. Very good, cheap game. Only $15 to buy that game. Highly, highly recommend you check that out. And then, the day after that, I hung out with my Questy Boys friends, who are mostly people that I knew, guys I went to college with, and then one other guy who I met through them, who they met through doing Wing Chun, the martial art. And we played board games together quite often. And we played... What did we play? We played Modern Art, the Reiner Knizia game, which I've always wanted to play. Never had, and I loved it. I absolutely adored it. Had a great time playing it. And then after that, what did we play after that? Terraforming Mars, which is one of my favorite games of all time. And played it with Saul and Brandon. And I had played it 2-player with Saul once before. Brandon had never played. They both had a really good time, even though I fucking pub stomped the shit out of them. Because I've played it a bunch of times. But I love that game so much. It's such a good time, and I had a really good time playing it. And then, I swear to God, we played a third game. Oh, we did. Called Vagrant Song, it just came out recently. And it's a cooperative game where you play as a bunch of people, like spirity things on this train in the afterworld, and there are like unresting spirits that you have to fight. And it's kind of like if you did like what Stuffed Fables did for a sort of like dungeon crawler, RPG light kind of game that's like themed towards kids and simplified that you could play with your kids, play as a family. It's like that, but for Kingdom Death Monster, which is one of my favorite games of all time, where it's like you have a showdown on the board, there's like an AI that's running the monster. The Kingdom Death AI is done through a deck of cards. This game uses a bag of tokens, and the tokens do different things depending on the monster that you're fighting. There's less options this way than there is with Kingdom Death, but still. It's just a simplified, and then afterwards you have a sort of like building phase. You upgrade your guys, do all that. It's very similar to Kingdom Death in a lot of ways, which I thought was really funny. I wasn't expecting that at all, and then I kind of like realized it when we were halfway through playing. I was like, this is a lot like Kingdom Death, which is fun. I had a good time. I played as a character who's like a little kid who's like a hobo girl, and she has a dog, and so you control the dog too, and the dog is faster and better at fighting than you are, and it was a good time. I had a good time playing all of that. But, of course, as it is known on this channel, I am Maidenless. And so I have been questing through the in-between lands, searching for the pieces of the Elden Ring, looking to become the Elden Lord. Of course, this has been happening. How could this not be happening? So, my history with Miyazaki and FromSoft is pretty small. I got Dark Souls when it came out, and it was too hard, and I couldn't get very far, and it just pissed me off. It pissed me off, and then I got rid of it, and then I got it again, and it still pissed me off, and then I got Demon Souls, and it pissed me off, and I got Bloodborne, and it pissed me off, and then after Bloodborne, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do this anymore. So I didn't play Sekiro at all, and I didn't play Dark Souls 3, and but my friend Saul, who I mentioned before, he loves Soulsborne stuff. And so he was very hype. And the game came out, he was hype about it as fuck. Texting the group chat constantly about it. Then I start seeing stuff on TikTok. And I'm like, this looks really cool. This game looks really cool. This game looks like I really want to be able to play this game. And basically through reading about it, seeing TikToks, talking to Saul, basically what I decided on was I was like, I think that they've finally done enough stuff to make it so that even though it's still really hard, I think it's going to be accessible in a way that the older games weren't. So, the Tuesday after it came out, it's like 5 days after it came out, which was the first of the month, I took a chance and I bought it. I bought Elden Ring, and it's pretty much what I've been doing with my free time when I'm at home for the last 2.5 weeks. I've put about 35 hours into it so far. I am, I don't know, less than halfway done with it, I would guess. Around halfway done with it. I'm not totally sure. I've beaten 2 of the 5 major bosses before the final boss. I believe there's 5 and then the last one. I'm not exactly sure. But I've beaten 2. The first 2. The Godric the Grafted, and then the sorceress at the academy, whose name I can't remember. But I've done a lot more than that as well. I think I'm around level 90 at this point. And I'm doing a faith int build with some focus on dex as well, doing the sword of ice and fire, or frost and flame, or something like that. Sword fucking rocks cock. I love that thing. Ever since I got that going, things have been smooth sailing for the most part. Summoning my wolves, having the combination. There's a bunch of things that are making this game so much easier than the old ones were. The open world thing means that if you get stuck, if something's pissing you off, you can just leave and go do something else, which is incredible. It's so nice to be able to do that, because there's so much to see. The open world nature of it is like so cool to explore and discover stuff. Just find weird dudes and incredible huge monsters and like just crazy shit constantly. The first like 15 hours of that game, it was like every 30 minutes I saw like the coolest thing that I ever saw in a game. It's got, I mean, all of his games have had a lot of Berserk vibes and influence. This one has the most, probably, of any of them. It is truly like a dark fantasy. Very cool. The thing that sold me, that finally made me pull the trigger, was when I saw Pope Turtle. That was when I knew that I needed to own this game, and I was right. And I've been having a blast. The ranged magic is also huge. The fact that you can do just strength based melee builds, but you can also do ranged builds, which is huge. I'm doing kind of like a flex one with the sword, because the sword has some pretty ranged stuff, and then I also am doing some spell casting, magic missile basically. I'm having an incredible time. I was so sick of open world games that I didn't think I was ever going to give a shit about one ever again. But this game is the first time since like Witcher 3 that I'm like compelled to do everything and find everything and like see everything there is to see, But I haven't felt this consumed by a game in this way since Skyrim, probably, which was over 10 years ago. Where I want to go to every location, I want to solve every quest, I want to meet every NPC, I want to get every piece of loot, like I want to see it all, And constantly on my TikTok, I'm seeing videos of people doing crazy shit, people with skills and weapons and spells and armors and things that I've never seen that are so fucking cool, and then I have to try and figure out what they are and how I can get them.
You're blue and naked and have fists. Oh my god! He's Sonic!
It feels like this never-ending hole of cool shit that you can just submerge yourself in for infinity. And I've been having a blast doing it. So, yeah, heavily recommend Elden Ring. The story, the plot, it's kind of whatever. But the world, the sort of all the stuff in it, so cool. And I love the way that it creates this sort of emergent narrative where instead of just having like a story about you being a hero or whatever that they tell you with like cutscenes, it's like you just kind of do really cool shit and then you feel like a hero or like a great warrior or whatever because you do boss shit. It doesn't need to have a plot, in like the traditional sense. It's just like you get the story through the actions of the game. And yeah, super good. Cold as fuck take that I like that game, but it is the hype is deserved, I would say. I've always wished I could get into these games because they seem like so aesthetically up my alley, and I'm really happy that it finally has happened, and I've been having a blast doing it. Coming up in the next few days, I've got concerts. I saw the Microphones do Microphones in 2020 on the 1st of March, which was earth-shattering and incredible and life-changing. I don't know if the two concerts I have this weekend are going to be that, but they're going to be good. Two bands that I have loved for many, 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 many years and have never seen live, so I'm excited to cross them off the list. Tomorrow night I'm going to see Godspeed You Black Emperor, and the day after that I'm seeing Guided by Voices. Going to both those shows with my bud Tim, who he is a huge Godspeed fan. He has like multiple Godspeed tattoos. And so I picked up a ticket, and I'm going to carpool in with him. And then on Saturday, we're going to Guided by Voices together because he works for the First Avenue, network of venues, and so he can get free tickets. And so we're going using his free tickets to go to Guided by Voices. So should be good. Get to see Ephraim Menuek and Bob Pollard back to back 2 nights in a row. I don't know what the fuck I'm thinking going to 2 concerts in 2 nights. I'm going to be grumpy as fuck on Sunday. I guarantee it. But it should be good. Should be fun. Yeah, so thanks for watching. I need to go to sleep now. Good night.